Greetings, curious minds. Voiceover script, type B. Slideshow, target. Around 13 to 14 minutes. This week in AI crossed a line we haven't seen before. Not in benchmarks, not in hype, but in actual, measurable capability. A model worked autonomously for 16 hours straight. A manned mecha robot was unveiled that you can actually pilot. And the question of which AI is best officially became obsolete. I'm Nikki, and this is the week the frontier moved. Let's start with the story that frames everything else. Anthropic's Claude Mythos, still in preview, pushed METR's autonomy evaluations to their absolute limit. 16 hours of continuous autonomous task execution. That's not a chatbot answering questions. That's an agent that can plan, execute, and iterate on complex engineering projects while you sleep. And it found macOS zero-day vulnerabilities for Apple in the process. Welcome to the Mythos threshold. Meanwhile, OpenAI had a week of its own. GPT-5.5 Cyber launched, a security-tuned variant gated behind verified credentials with partnerships at Cloudflare, Cisco, and CrowdStrike. It's the first frontier model designed specifically for defensive cybersecurity. GPT-5.5 Instant became the default ChatGPT model, with 52% less filler, sub 100 millisecond latency, and GPT Realtime 2 dropped with Realtime Translate across 70 languages and zero latency whisper streaming. The breadth of this release family is staggering. OpenAI isn't just releasing models, they're deploying an entire ecosystem. But while OpenAI expanded upward, DeepSeek drove the market downward. Their promo week pushed V4 pricing to 27 cents per million input tokens. Let me put that in perspective. That's 34 times cheaper than GPT-5. Fiverr Claude Opus 4.7 for comparable performance in coding and math. The V4 Pro, a 1.6 trillion parameter mixture of experts model, now matches frontier performance while remaining hardware independent. Optimized for Huawei Ascend chips. MIT licensed, completely open. This is the model that forced every other lab to rethink their pricing strategy. And the market is still adjusting. Google wasn't quiet either. Gemini 3.2 Flash is rumored to hit 92% of GPT-5. 5's performance at 15 to 20 times lower cost, with sub 200 millisecond response times. If true, that's a game changer for production deployments. And Alibaba dropped Qwen 3 Coder next, a state-of-the-art open-weight model designed for repository-level coding and agentic programming. This isn't a toy. It's a serious contender for any team wanting to self-host their coding infrastructure. Anthropic's Claude Opus 4.7 reached full rollout this week, with capabilities that redefine what we expect from a model. Adaptive reasoning, dynamically adjusting thinking time based on prompt complexity. Routines, autonomous background agents that run on schedules without you watching. And there's the SpaceX Colossus deal, a partnership for orbital AI compute using 220,000 NVIDIA GPUs. Satellite-based edge inference. That's not next year. That's happening now. So where does this leave us? Let me give you the landscape as it stands today. GPT-5.5 leads terminal bench at 82.7%. Best for agentic terminal work. Claude Opus 4.7 holds the SWE bench crown at 87.6%. King of multi-file coding. DeepSeek V4 costs 34 times less. The budget frontier champion. Gemini 3.1 Pro handles 2 million tokens of context with native audio and video. There is no single best model anymore. The question is no longer which model wins, it's which model wins for your specific use case. But here's what makes this week truly different. That question, which model is best, is now the wrong question entirely. Because while the labs were fighting over benchmarks, a second revolution was happening in parallel. The agent layer. And this week, that layer grew up. Act 2 is about the agents that now sit on top of these models, and they're becoming more important than the models themselves. Think of it this way. A frontier model is the engine, but an agent framework is the chassis, the transmission, the steering wheel, and the driver. This week, multiple chassis builders released upgrades that fundamentally change what these systems can do. Anthropic launched Agent View for Claude Code, a unified dashboard that lets you manage multiple parallel autonomous sessions from your terminal. No more juggling tmux tabs. The goal command lets Claude work across multiple turns until a specific completion condition is met. Combined with BF for background sessions, this means Claude Code can now run entire engineering tasks while you context switch to something else. Agent View doubles as a research preview, and Anthropic raised Claude Code weekly limits by 50% through July 13th. They're betting big on autonomous coding. Hermes Agent from News Research released version 2.0 this week with a codename that fits: Tenacity. The headline feature is background computer use on macOS. The agent can operate your operating system without interrupting your cursor. It scrolls, clicks, types, and navigates while you keep working. It also adds a self-improving loop. Agents reflect on completed tasks, crystallize reusable skills into a local library, and get better over time. Hermes Kanban manages long-running multi-agent tasks with heartbeat detection to reclaim zombie processes 140,000 GitHub stars and growing. This is what open-source agentic looks like at scale. OpenAI entered the specialized agent market with Daybreak, a cybersecurity platform built on GPT-5.5 and the Codex Agentic Harness. It autonomously finds, validates, and patches vulnerabilities in isolated sandboxed environments. 3 access tiers, from standard GPT-5, 5 to the gated GPT-5. Cyber for verified security professionals. Cloudflare's CTO called it a new era for agentic security operations. The era of AI defending against AI-scaled attacks has officially arrived. At the Red Hat Summit this week, the conversation shifted to something less flashy, but arguably more important: governance. Agent Ops is a suite for tracing, observability, and cryptographic identity management for autonomous agents. Fedora Hummingbird, an agent-forward Linux spin. Native agent sandboxing in Red Hat Desktop. The industry is converging on OpenTelemetry as the standard for agent tracing. Microsoft and Red Hat both released OTel native layers this week. Agents need guardrails, and the guardrails are being built. CrewAI split its CLI into a standalone package and patched security vulnerabilities. Defy added native MCP support for direct enterprise database connections. LangGraph improved Checkpoint SQLite for long-running threads. Agent Zero redesigned its onboarding with modular plugins. And TikTok launched an MCP server that lets AI agents run ad campaigns directly. Google, Meta, and Amazon have similar offerings. The agentic API economy is here. Now for Act 3. Because not everything happens in boardrooms and labs. Some of the most exciting news this week came from a law student who built a coding agent in Rust. DeepSeek 2i exploded to 23,000 GitHub stars. It features YOLO mode, full autonomous operation, where the agent edits files and runs shell commands without approval. Live reasoning, blocks stream chain of thought in real time. 3 modes: plan, agent, and YOLO. MIT licensed, completely free, optimized for DeepSeek v4's million token, and it happened in a week. OpenClaw crossed 370,000 GitHub stars this week with TaskFlow, background tasks that persist across system restarts, and native cron job support. They also patched a critical privilege escalation vulnerability, which is worth noting as agents gain more system access. The community library now exceeds 3,200 skills. One-click deployment templates launched for AWS, DigitalOcean, and Tencent Cloud. Local deep research lets you run autonomous research pipelines entirely on local hardware. Privacy first, no token costs. OpenSwarm and Archon are pioneering multi-agent coordination where hundreds of small models collaborate on single problems. And a developer named Nielsen open-sourced a 3D generation toolkit for Claude Code. One input image becomes a complete 3D environment with meshes, physics, and lighting. Now, and I realize this has been a lot of software. Here's where the week gets truly wild. Because while we were debating benchmarks and agent architectures, the physical world was being rebuilt. Act 4. The robots got to work. This is the week when AI stopped being just ones and zeros in a data center and started climbing into machines that weigh half a ton, walk on 2 legs, and work 8-hour shifts without stopping. Unitree unveiled the GD01 on Monday. It's a manned, transformable mecha, 2.7 meters tall, 500 kilograms, bipedal walking that converts to quadrupedal crawling. $650,000. Production ready. Classified as a civilian vehicle. The CEO demonstrated it by piloting it through brick walls, because of course he did. This isn't a research prototype. It's a product, and it signals that the humanoid robotics race has moved from impressive demo to industrial deployment. Meanwhile, China shipped over 5,000 humanoid robots in 2025 alone. The supply chain advantage is real. Figure live-streamed 8 consecutive hours of fully autonomous, unsupervised robot operation. No human intervention. 2 F3 robots coordinated to clean a room and make a bed in under 2 minutes. They're now moving to a 24/7 continuous live stream. Physical Intelligence released what's being called the GPT-2 moment for robotics, a universal robot brain that controls multiple different hardware forms from a single model. And Rivian launched its own native AI assistant this week, powered by Gemini Pro, with full vehicle hardware access, voice commands for ride height, drive modes, even the frunk. All of this autonomy needs power. This week, Lake Tahoe learned that lesson the hard way. 75% of its electricity is being redirected to AI data centers in Nevada. Prices are up 77% since 2022. The nuclear revival is real. Atkins Reales reported a 34% profit jump from AI factory contracts. OpenAI and Oracle are collaborating on a 4.5 gigawatt project. Google committed $40 billion to Texas campuses with small modular reactors. Let me tie this all together. 3 themes defined this week. 1. There is no single best model anymore. The winning strategy is picked by use case, not benchmark. 2. Agents are becoming operating systems, not chatbots, with governance, background execution, and self-improvement loops. 3. Embodied autonomy is real. From Mythos finding macOS bugs to Figure running 8-hour shifts, AI is moving from text into the physical world. Anthropic overtook OpenAI in business adoption this week. 34.4% of U.S. businesses versus 32.3%. The Gates Foundation committed $200 million to an Anthropic partnership for global health and education. That was the week. If one thing is clear, it's that we're not in the chatbot era anymore. The frontier has moved from conversation to autonomous execution, from benchmarks to real work, from software alone to software in steel. If this roundup earned a moment of your time, consider subscribing. I'm keeping my ears perked for what I/O brings next week. Google has some surprises in store. Until then, curious minds, stay sharp. Off you go, but don't wander too far.